Murdered a Podcast. I'm your host, AB. And this week on Mama Murdered a Podcast, we're doing something a little bit different than what we'd normally do. Because I figured with all of the really dark cases that I've been covering over the last few months, that maybe this month, in celebration of Halloween, which is my absolute favorite holiday, we could just do a few weeks of spooky topics and take a little journey through the glitch in the Matrix this week. Maybe do some past life stories, some haunting, some sleep paralysis, like conspiracy theories. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But this week, I thought it would be kind of fun to go through some glitch in the Matrix stories because these always blow my freaking mind. Now, before I say let's get it and before we get started, full disclosure, I did pull each and every one of these stories from either Reddit or some other online forum where people openly share their experiences like this. But I will be sure to let you know before I read them where I actually found these stories at and what usernames they were submitted under. Also, all of the original posts will be linked in the show notes in the description box for this episode. So with all that being said, and without further ado, let's get it. Now, this first story comes from Reddit under the subreddit Glitch in the Matrix, and it was submitted by user name boopieboopieboopie. No spaces. And the heading caption for this entry reads, quote, "I drove down a road that didn't exist." And the story goes like this. This happened about 10 years ago when I was 17. I was in Tampa visiting my aunt and my grandma. They lived 2 turns off of a very long, fairly main road, and I always remembered this weird-looking building about halfway down the road on the left. The architecture was super specific and was the only building for quite a while on either side, about 3/4 of a mile from the first turn in order to get to their house. It always stuck out to me as a kid as a marker that we were just around the corner. One night I went to a concert about an hour and a half to 2 hours away, and my aunt let me borrow her car, and I had to pick up another girl along the way. She lived about 20 minutes away from my aunt's, and I had to get on the freeway to get to her house. I picked her up, we went to the concert, then I drove her home. I can't remember the exact time of night, but it was late enough that very few cars were left on the roads. I believe sometime in between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. This girl lived in what I would describe as the swampy suburbs. There were lots of family homes, but the roads weren't paved super well. There were no street lamps, no sidewalks, and it was windy and confusing. It was not a clearly laid out grid, and I absolutely needed my GPS to guide me in and out. A couple of minutes after I dropped her off, I started my 20-minute journey back to my family's house. I noticed that my phone only had 2% battery left. I immediately started speeding to get out of the confusing, windy roads of this neighborhood before I lost my GPS. My aunt called and asked me where I was, and as I said, I can't talk, I only have 2%, my phone died. I was in a particularly pitch-black neighborhood with no signs of any main roads or any clear direction of how to get out. It felt like I was in a never-ending maze. I went down road after road, flipping U-turns in random dark driveways, hitting dead ends at every other turn. I was screaming and panicking and hitting the steering wheel with my hands. I was so scared. But after 5 or 10 minutes of this, I had an insane sense of calm wash over me. In an instant, I knew it was all going to be okay and that God, because I was a Christian at the time but no longer am, but that God would guide me home. I knew there was no way something bad was going to happen to me, and that just felt like a fact. It was bizarre, like my body knew something that I didn't. The next turn I took, I was spit out on a new road. I turned right and immediately noticed the weird building by my aunt's house literally on the corner. I turned around in the parking lot, went back down the road to their house, putting the building back on my left. I was home less than 10 minutes after I had dropped the girl off and got back through the suburbs when earlier that night, it had taken me 20 minutes on the freeway. But here's the kicker. The next day, I wanted to see what street I had come out on the night before, and I kid you not, there was no street. Not even close. The next street that I would have been able to turn from would have been the first to get me to my family's house, about 3/4 mile down the road. But when I turned onto the main drag the night before, the weird building was immediately on my right. This has always been such an insane memory of mine, and I know whoever I tell it to thinks that I must have just missed the street somehow. But I went through every possibility, and it just wasn't there. That, on top of it taking me a significantly shorter amount of time to get home from that girl's house, especially after panicking and going down random dead ends, adding 5 or 10 minutes. Plus, getting home in that amount of time through a neighborhood when before I had taken the freeway to get to her house. And the inexplicable knowing that I was going to be all right, and then the literal next turn putting me on the only landmark that I know of in the area. I'm so glad I found this sub because this feels like the only place that would get this. I literally feel like I was transported. Now, this second story also comes from Reddit, from the same subreddit, The Glitch in the Matrix, and this one was submitted by user traditional-frame-90, and the heading caption reads, Car Glitch. Now, this one says, I just found out about this page via a YouTube video that reminded me of this weird event that happened to me a couple years ago. I was driving on the highway, going down the main hill in my city, super snowy, nighttime. There's a train bridge that's above the highway that I'm approaching. Also, I'm in the left lane of the 2 lanes. All of a sudden, I hit ice. I start swerving and spinning downhill. I do 380-degree rotations diagonally into the right lane. After the first 180, I clock a white car in the right lane, and I remember thinking, man, I hope they don't hit me. I hope they get in the other lane. By the way, time really does slow down in accidents like this. I had enough time to think of a plan and diagram the situation out in my head and protect myself, everything, because I noticed that I was going to hit the guardrail next to the cement holding up the train bridge. After another 360-degree spin, the car in the right lane is still in the right lane and even closer. And I do not have enough time to spin again, as there's about a foot left before I crash. I remember thinking, is this guardrail going to smash my window? So I decided to just huddle into a ball and brace for impact. I also pulled my hood more over the side of my face in case glass shattered at my face. As I squeezed my eyes closed, 10 seconds go by, then 20 more. I'm not sure how long, but I peeked when I opened because nothing was happening. I should have opened my eyes to car headlights coming at me, but instead, my car was in P for park. I'm in my own lane, the left lane, and my car's facing forwards, in park. The car that was supposed to hit me passed me. It was a huge WTF moment for me. I kind of assumed it was guardian spirits or angels these past couple of years, but I do love simulation theories as well, as I'm not religious, but it never crossed my mind until this YouTube video. This next story comes from the same subreddit, The Glitch in the Matrix, and it was submitted by user Natchthund. I think that's how you say it. With the headline caption reading, "The day after Halloween, a pumpkin we didn't buy appeared in our house." And this one says, "This happened 9 years ago. and talking about it today still fills me with fear. My boyfriend and I were renting a property, and we were the only people to have a key. We love Halloween and normally buy a pumpkin at least, but this year we were both working and just didn't have time for it, so we didn't buy any pumpkins or decorations at all. The day after Halloween, I was getting ready to leave for work and headed down the stairs for the first time. My boyfriend was still in the bedroom when this happened. I got to the top of the stairs, and at the bottom of the stairs was a carved pumpkin, with your typical pumpkin smiley face with a candle lit inside. The worst part is, it was positioned so that it was facing the stairs. I screamed, and my boyfriend came to see what happened, and when he saw it, he freaked. We checked all the doors and windows, and they were all locked. Nobody else has a key to our house, and we didn't buy any pumpkins. We still, to this day, have no idea how this pumpkin appeared in our house. I recently heard about this glitch in the Matrix, and I'm starting to think that this could have been that. Let me know what you guys think. Now, this next post, again, came from the Glitch in the Matrix Reddit subreddit and was submitted by the user AnonymousBig22. So, to put it into perspective, me, a 20-year-old male, my girlfriend of 2 years, who's a 19-year-old female, lost her mother unexpectedly 6 months before she and I met. She and her mother were very close. They were practically best friends. Now, it's New Year's Eve, and we're heading to her best friend's house for a party. My girlfriend decides to wear one of the last things her mother gave to her before she passed away, a pair of gold earrings. At some point during the night, she loses an earring. Devastated, we retrace our steps, and we do manage to find the back into it, but no earring. It's now 24 hours later. I'm laying in bed by myself with no clothes on while she's in the shower. I'm reading a book when all of a sudden, the fucking earring gets dropped onto my bare chest out of nowhere. I look around, nobody else is in the room, nobody else in the house, just my girlfriend showering in the room beside me. I do not have long hair, and I was not wearing a hat. Absolutely zero chance it was stuck to me. And I forgot to read the caption for that last story. The last one was captioned, "This made my spine shiver." The next story is captioned, "Saw the weirdest thing at work today." It was submitted on the Glitch in the Matrix subreddit by Reddit user The Real Randler. And it says, I work at a retail store, a pretty popular one. Its color is red. And I was walking today to go stock something, and I see a lady with a baby in her cart walking in front of me. My wife and I have had bad baby fever, so I looked over at the baby and I stopped. The baby's face looked like a video game model who hadn't loaded in yet. It was a face, but it looked like a terrible old video game's graphics. I thought at first maybe the baby had a deformity, but about 20 seconds later, the face just became normal. I thought I just missaw it until I talked to a guy who was working near me who saw the exact same thing. Only he saw the baby's face going from normal to weird a little bit earlier. Now, I also wanted to read some of the comments from the people who responded to this post about the baby's face kind of morphing right in front of someone else's eyes, because apparently this is more common than what I would have guessed. So, Reddit user Unseen World X replied to this comment with a comment that says, I saw something not too far off from this about a year ago. No one else saw it, so I tried to dismiss it, but it still stands out. While sober, my friend's entire head glitched as if he were a cheap, superimposed special effect. The background did not warp or waver in the slightest, only his head. And then this user replied to another comment by saying, I mentioned it to him, And then the user that was saying this had happened while he was sober to his friend's head also left another comment that says, I mentioned it to him. We were looking right at each other within arm's length, just casually talking. He didn't notice or feel anything unusual. Not seen anything like that before or since. And then another Reddit user also commented on the original post about the baby's head. And this Reddit user's name is one that I'm not even going to try to get right. But it's spelled EEEWO. And they commented saying, I've seen this too. I wrote it off as anxiety, but it was just as you described. I still think about it almost 20 years later. So maybe this isn't as uncommon as we'd all like to believe, which is kind of creepy. And this next story gives me all the chills. And as you've probably guessed by now, this one also came from the Reddit Glitch in the Matrix. And it was written by Reddit user WoodTipWine. And the caption on this one is, what the fuck was that? ? And this post says, hey there. I don't know if this was a glitch in the Matrix, a ghost, or my mind playing tricks on me. But I saw a hanging woman in a tree, and then 3 minutes later, she was gone. Today, my drive home from work was like any other drive home from work. I was on the back road, smacking my vape, listening to a podcast. I live in the middle of nowhere. Wait, did I post this on Reddit? Because as of right now, this sounds pretty accurate. Oh, never mind. Let me keep reading. It says, I live in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, so nothing but trees, houses, and deer. As I was nearing a curb, I noticed a pale figure in a tree. I thought it was weird, but couldn't make it out until I got closer. I approached and saw plainly in front of me a woman with long, elegant, straight black hair. She was very pale and wearing a white, tattered, smock-like dress. I thought it was a weird Halloween decoration as I passed. And then it dawned on me. It's November, almost December. My mind raced for the next mile or so. Then my curiosity got the best of me. I pulled into a driveway and turned my car around and back in the direction of the woman. It maybe took me 3 minutes to get back to where I saw her, but as I approached the same curb, she was gone. I don't know what the fuck I saw, but I still feel uneasy. That was the end of that post. I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you ever see anybody or anything hanging from a tree, you do not turn around, you do not pass go, you do not collect $200. Hell, you don't even go straight to jail. You call 911 and have somebody else check it out, because that's how people get murdered. Okay, next story. Now, this next story is also super wild to me, and it comes from the same Glitch in the Matrix subreddit and was submitted by the username Sarnath. The headline and caption on this one reads, Dead cousin is coming to dinner tonight. And it says, last night I was on the phone with my mom and she told me to come over for dinner. Everything was going great. Then she suddenly comes out with, Janet is going to be there. I was like, very funny, Mom. Great one. But in my head, I was thinking, that's really not funny. Why would you say something like that? Then my mom keeps going on with this, you haven't seen her in forever. It'll be nice, etc., etc. Janet died last year. I have a vivid memory of it. I did not attend the funeral, but I remember everyone talking about it and making a scene of it because she died young. She died of cancer, and I remember her husband coming to visit and being very depressed. I never saw her body or anything, but I'm 1,000% certain this woman is dead, and I remember my family members talking about it. I never saw the body or visited her grave, but I wasn't that close with her, so I never had much grief over it. But I have vivid memories of her dying and my relatives being depressed over it. I was really weirded out by my mom on the phone, and finally I came out and said, "Janet died. What are you talking about?" And my mom just kept talking like it was ridiculous or like I was kidding around. She jokingly said, "She's back," or something like that. I asked my dad later on, and he looked at me like I was insane. I also couldn't find the obituary online, but I never looked for it to begin with. I'm assuming one of three things is happening. 1, my parents snapped from grief and are imagining my dead cousin is coming over for dinner. 2, I switched universes where Janet never died. Or 3, a zombie is coming to dinner. I guess I'll update this post and let you know how it goes. Did anything like this ever happen to someone else? I changed the name for paranoia/privacy. And then this same user responded to questions that other people posted on this thread of his Reddit about his dead cousin coming to dinner. He lets everybody know how it went and what happened after this post was made, so I want to read those here. One of the replies says, "Sorry for taking so long, I'm finally back. This probably won't be as exciting as you guys were hoping, but it was indeed the same Janet that I remembered dying last year. I remember getting a really creepy feeling when I walked in and saw her sitting there, but everyone was acting perfectly normal. Nothing extraordinary happened, but we sat around talking for a long time. She talked with me some about finding work. Coincidentally, she sat right next to me during the meal. And obviously, I wasn't going to come out and say, 'Hey, I remembered that you died last year.' So I just kind of went with it. I wanted to ask about the cancer or get some sort of evidence that I'm not going insane, but that seemed inappropriate. Nobody mentioned cancer or anything out of the ordinary. I like to think I'm a sane individual, so I kept my thoughts to myself. Saying I have memories of her dying of cancer isn't exactly polite dinner conversation. The eerie part is that I was sitting around having dinner with the same people that I remember talking about Janet's death with. Some of my aunts were there, and I distinctly remember last year one of them crying over it and being in the same spot. I don't know why, but this isn't hitting me as strongly as it should. It doesn't seem profound, and I'm not as creeped out as I should be anymore. The memories didn't clear up once I saw her, and I still know what I saw and heard a year ago. But it doesn't make me question my sanity or anything. It's just very bizarre. I guess I haven't really absorbed it yet. So yes, I did have a lengthy conversation with my quote-unquote dead, that isn't actually dead cousin. She seems perfectly healthy and in great spirits. I enjoyed talking with her, and I'm glad she's still alive." This next story is also from the subreddit Glitch in the Matrix, and it was submitted by Reddit user Wrongdoer Leading 8029. And the caption on this one reads, "My 3-year-old insisted I was having a baby and described her perfectly." This one is also crazy, so buckle up. This one says, "A few years ago, when my daughter was 3, I decided to go back to school and become a nurse. My husband and I were in no way trying for a baby whatsoever. I was on birth control and we were very careful. I walked into her preschool one day to find the director and her teachers telling me congratulations, all with big smiles on their faces. I used to work as a preschool teacher here, so a lot of these people were close friends of mine. I asked them what they were congratulating me for, and they tell me that my daughter has announced to everyone that Mommy has a little sister in her tummy. I laughed it off and told them that I was sorry to disappoint them, but that just wasn't true. My daughter and I went home and talked about it. I told her Mommy didn't have a baby in her tummy, and she kept pointing at my belly saying, 'Yes, you do,' as if I were lying to her. A few days later, I woke up to someone touching my belly. My daughter has the bottom of my shirt pulled up with her head resting on my belly, while she rubs it gently and says, 'Baby sister, what are you doing hiding in there?' It was really sweet, and I just assumed that she really wanted a little sister." She had never expressed any interest in having a sibling prior to this, and we never discussed it. We had the talk again, and she got upset with me and told me that she's seen her before and that she is in there. She told me that her sister looks different than us and has blonde hair and blue eyes with, quote-unquote, little holes in her cheeks, aka dimples. My daughter, my husband, and I all have very dark hair, chocolate brown eyes, and no dimples. I talked to her about wanting a sibling and telling her that when I finish school, we'll try to give her a little brother or sister. And again, she's frustrated and yelling, I already have a sister. I was expecting my period to start within the next week like clockwork. It didn't. I took a pregnancy test and just stared at the faint positive results for what felt like forever. I was completely in shock. I was on birth control, so I immediately called my OBGYN and they saw me the next day. It was estimated that I was 4 weeks and 6 days pregnant. I gave birth to a blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girl with the sweetest dimples. Now, these next two stories kind of go hand in hand, so I wanted to share these together, but still separately. So, this first story is from the same Glitch in the Matrix subreddit, and it was written by Reddit user Multiple Colored Chloe, which is a really dope username. So, I'm going to go ahead and read this one, and I want to read what one Reddit user responded to this story with by sharing their own similar story. So, this first one is from Multiple Colored Chloe and is captioned, My grandfather visited me in my dream the night he died. And it says, A few years back, February of 2011, I had a dream of my grandfather, who I was not particularly close to by any means. In my dream, I saw his casket formally covered in an American flag as he served in the military. He stood next to me in a room full of mourners and he held my hand. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, You see that door over there? I have to leave. When I go, don't follow me out those doors. And I watched him leave. When I woke up, I went downstairs to get breakfast and call my father to tell him happy birthday. My older brother informed me that my grandfather had just passed away in his sleep while I also slept. Also, I had no previous information before that morning that my grandfather was on his deathbed. We weren't close family members, and I was a young teen at the time, so my family most likely did not see me as a priority to inform. He died of old age, but did have severe Alzheimer's, although he seemed perfectly conscious and aware of what was happening in my dream. I told my family about it, and I have been known to have strong instincts and have vivid dreams. They seemed to believe me, but they took it fairly lightly. Has anyone been visited by someone the night of their death, or have any similar experiences? So, in response to that last question about having similar experiences, Reddit user that goes by the name of Not My Rules replied, and this reply says, Oh, I think that's awesome. Yes, my dad came to say goodbye. My dad and I, 16 at the time, had a horrible fight about boys. He was a Marine, and in typical teenage fashion, I told him that I hated him and hoped he'd die. He worked third shift, so he left for work shortly after that fight. At 4 a.m., he, quote-unquote, wakes me up by opening my bedroom door and coming to sit down on my bed. I pretend I'm still sleeping because I'm still hella pissed. He kind of thumps my hip and smiles, and I ask him if he's here to apologize. He, still smiling, saying, I'm actually here to tell you that I love you dearly, but I have to go. I need you to remember that I love you. Everything with me is okay, and I need you to look after your mom. Mom, who currently had the flu. All of this was weird because he should have still been at work at 6 a.m., and I hadn't heard him come in. The dogs would have barked. And I, still being the pissy kid, said, yeah, okay. Then I woke up. I had been dreaming all along. It was 5:20 a.m. In my dream, it had been 4 a.m. I looked outside, but his car's not in the driveway. I got ready to catch the school bus. We lived rural. But the world seemed slightly off to me. My mom seemed normal, so I let it go. During the ride to school, a message came across the bus radio that I was to come home immediately. I turned to my best friend sitting next to me and told him my dad was dead. He didn't believe me. My dad was found dead at work at 5 a.m., and paramedics estimated he'd been dead for about an hour. So, yes, I believe that we can be visited in dreams by people who love us. It's comforted me immensely as I've gotten older that my dad was so loving in his goodbye. He wasn't angry at me. He knew that I loved him too. Many hugs to you. Another story from the same Glitch in the Matrix Reddit thread. I wasn't joking when I said I just went straight to Reddit because that's normally where the tea on these types of things are. So this next story comes from Reddit user InterestingBus6459, and the headline and caption reads, "My wallet disappeared and reappeared the next day, 2 states away." This post says, "This happened a little over a year ago. I'm new to Reddit, but it still really bothers me to the point where I probably think about it at least once a week. I have a small little wallet, really just a little zipper pouch, but I'll refer to it as a wallet, that I keep my credit cards, license, and some cash in. I'd always leave it in my purse. Well, one day, a Tuesday, my boyfriend asked if I had any cash because he needed it for something. I said yes and directed him to my purse, which was sitting on the kitchen counter. He took out the money that he needed and put the wallet back. I assumed I was in the next room and could hear him going through the bag, but he was not visible. So anyway, fast forward to the next day, Friday, I leave for work, grab my purse, and head out the door. Later after work, when I needed gas, I go through my purse to grab my wallet, but it wasn't there. I was annoyed because I figured my husband was careless and forgot to put it back in my purse, and it was probably just sitting on the kitchen counter at home. I was certain that's where I was going to find it, but when I got home, it was nowhere to be found. And of course I asked him about it, and he says he definitely put the wallet right back in my purse when he was done. We spent a good amount of time searching everywhere for it, the whole house, the car, jacket pockets, etc. Even though he swears he had put it back right after he got the cash out. Anyway, we didn't find it, and we couldn't spend more time looking because we were supposed to be leaving that afternoon for my parents' house out of state. It was a 2.5-hour drive, and we had to get going because they were waiting for us for dinner. So the whole drive up there, I'm all upset because I'm traveling out of state without my wallet, credit cards, and ID, and I'm contemplating whether or not I need to cancel my credit cards, which are joint with my husband's. I first asked my husband if he was sure that he put it back in my purse, which he was, and I made sure he wasn't just messing with me for some odd reason, which he wasn't. So I figured the wallet must have just fallen out somewhere when I was out that day, so I proceed to cancel our credit cards during the long drive. So we get to the restaurant 2 states away, and I'm explaining to my parents how I lost my wallet, and they, of course, have no problem picking up the check, since I did end up canceling the cards. Finally, we get back to their house where we're staying for the weekend. As soon as I walk in, I set my purse down on a stool in the kitchen. My husband and I then go make up the bed in the room where we'll be sleeping and put our bags in there and whatnot. I come back out 10 minutes later and see my missing wallet sticking at least halfway out of the outside pocket of my purse. I just stood there in shock. It was not there before. We had emptied out my purse at home before we left. Every pocket, every little zip-up spot in that purse, everything. It was not there. But now, later that day, 2 states away, it reappears, almost taunting me with how brazenly it was just sitting there, almost falling out of the pocket. So obvious to see. I checked inside, and of course, there were my credit cards and ID, and exactly what had been in there before. This was over a year ago, and I still have absolutely no idea how it happened. And as you've probably all guessed by now, this one is also coming from the Glitch in the Matrix Reddit thread. This one was posted by a user with the username Mentally Empty, which, same. And the caption on this one reads, "I swear I time traveled. Or am I crazy?" And it says, "This was 10 years ago when I was 16. I again remembered this experience just yesterday. I was living on/in the Mornington Peninsula, or Victoria, Australia. Rosebud to be exact. When I went to see my family in Melbourne, I would take the bus from Frankston and then the train to Melbourne. The bus trip always took around an hour or a bit over. On this one occasion, when I was riding from Rosebud to Frankston via the bus, I met someone on it and we started talking. It only felt like 30 minutes of talking, and we hadn't reached Frankston yet. Of course, all of a sudden, I received a call from my father, who I was traveling to visit that day. He was acting a bit aggravated, asking where the fuck I was. I responded with, 'Dad, I'm on the bus like I told you 30 or 40 minutes ago.' He went off calling me a liar. I was super confused and questioned what I did wrong. What he said scared and confused the shit out of me. He said I couldn't have been on the bus because it's been 3 hours since I had left. I checked the time, and lo and behold, it was 3 hours later. Yet, I was on the same bus that hadn't reached Frankston, nor had any detours. I asked the people on the bus to check the time and how long we were on the bus for. They checked and looked at me slowly, wide-eyed, also frazzled by how the hell the time could have jumped. I repeatedly tried to assure my dad I was still on the same bus, and I don't understand how the time jumped. Obviously, I sounded nuts, so he never believed me. That experience has never happened again, and I still try to find a logical explanation to this day. Help?" This will be the last story, but it also came from the same Glitch in the Matrix subreddit, and it was submitted by user DiverOak9778. And this story caught my eye because of the amount of socks that are reported missing in my house. Someone please assure me that we're not the only house with disappearing socks. Tell me this is normal. And we always blame our washing machine and dryer and accuse the washing machine of being a sock snatcher. But what if it's not that at all? What's been eating our socks? This story says, my 5-year-old was vacuuming in the living room and accidentally sucked up a pair of her briefs from under the couch or something. I removed them from the hose, placed them in the washing machine along with a sock that was in the canister, and reattached the hose. I continued vacuuming, and a few minutes later, I noticed that there's no suction again. I repeat the process, and lo and behold, they're back. So the undies are back in the hose on the vacuum. I'm going to keep reading because that got confusing for me for a minute. I go to place them back in the machine. I just went to check. It was a different pair. None of them are in there. The sock is in there, though. I can't attach a picture. I'm sorry. I'm very confused. I'm also confused. Because how? How did you put undies in the washing machine and then the same undies end up in the vacuum again and are no longer in the washing machine, but the random sock is? What's up with that? I think that's all I got for y'all this week. We may keep doing some weird things like this through the month of October, just because. And then I'm thinking maybe just like one regular episode on a random day, at a random time, with absolutely no planning. It'll be complete chaos. I thrive in chaos, so it'll be fun. I don't know. We'll see. We'll workshop it. We'll figure it out. We always do. And now let's do a review of the week, because these are my absolute favorite. They make me happy, and they make my heart smile. So, news to me is you can also leave a written review for the podcast on Audible. I had no idea, but a listener reached out. She said that's where she listens. She was able to write a review, Let's read it because, yes, let's read that. This review is from S. Braswell, and it says, TikTok made me listen. I saw a TikTok about the podcast and immediately followed MMAP. Y'all, I'm Southern, so I love the accent. I relate. I became obsessed at the Plan C episode. Holy moly, that is some good writing. I started less than 2 weeks ago, and I'm now caught up. Definitely binge-worthy. My favorite part is how she adds humor to lighten up the darkness of the cases. P.S. I rarely hear the sounds that you always apologize for. So that is so nice. Thank you, S. Braswell. You're my favorite human being. So let's do this again, y'all. I like doing this. Let's do it again. Same time, same place, next Wednesday. See you then.
That's how my mama murdered a podcast.